Michelle Schrenker married a high-flying husband with the Midas touch.
He just took my breath away. I never met anyone like him before.
They were the couple that everybody wanted to be.
It was an ideal life until Michelle's husband did the unthinkable.
A lot of people are greedy, and they don't care who they hurt to get it.
The news was saying that he had faked his own death.
Michelle's husband was now a wanted man, and their marriage front-page news.
The story in itself is just so fascinating.
I was just like, I am in some sort of sick dream.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Michelle Schrenker is as pretty as they come. Growing up in Indiana, everyone knew that someday she'd make a beautiful bride.
Being raised in a Catholic family, you just didn't get divorced. I mean, when you were in a marriage, you were in it for good. So I was getting married once, and that was going to be it.
Michelle never expected to meet her match when she was just out of high school. But in the summer of 1993, a chance encounter at a local hangout changed her life forever.
Marcus was with a friend that I went to high school with, and he was very attractive. He just kind of caught my eye as I was standing there, and apparently I started staring at him, not knowing it.
For Michelle, it was love at first sight. And Marcus, a college student, seemed to feel the same. He literally swept Michelle off her feet.
My first date, he took me flying. I really don't even like to fly, but I liked him so much that I just went for it. It was a really exciting first date.
Marcus, an avid pilot, was determined to impress Michelle. And it worked. 2 years later, she became his wife.
I didn't have any wedding jitters, you know, like girls sometimes do. I knew this was the man I was meant to be with.
Michelle was always very, very devoted. She would just put him on a pedestal and really admired him.
It was the love of my life, and I just felt so at peace about it.
Once they were married, Marcus and Michelle lived life in the fast lane. Marcus landed a good job as a financial advisor at an investment firm. During his free time, he flew in air shows, performing death-defying stunts.
I would definitely say he's a risk taker. That's why I think we balance each other out. I'm more of, you know, the one that kind of settles him a bit and grounds him more.
By the late 1990s, the couple seemed to have it all. Marcus started his own company, managing million-dollar pension funds. Michelle was happy as a stay-at-home mom with their 3 kids in an affluent Indianapolis suburb known as Cocktail Cove.
Cocktail Cove was typically where the boaters on the lake tend to tie up on the weekends and party.
They had a gorgeous house. It was McMansion, I guess is how they refer to it. It had nice bedrooms, finished basement, movie theater. It was a really beautiful house.
In a place where appearances meant everything, the Schrenkers seemed just about perfect. But behind closed doors, it was a different story.
He had a bit of a temper. It was a bit like walking on eggshells. Never quite knew who was coming through the door at 5 o'clock, so you just had to be prepared for it.
Even the Schrenkers' nanny couldn't help but notice Marcus's mood swings.
He'd be happy one minute and then the next he'd be upset about the littlest thing. You know, he'd be trying to clean the garage. If the kids weren't right out there right away, he'd get upset and start yelling.
Ever the loyal wife, Michelle did what she could to keep the peace at home. But 10 years into their marriage, putting a smile on Marcus's face wasn't so easy anymore.
He had to be perfect, had to have perfect clothes. She had to be perfect. I think it was a lot of pressure for her. I mean, you've seen her, she's beautiful. And he would tell her that she was heavy, overweight.
There seemed to be no pleasing Marcus, who by now was spending little time at home.
You know, he would say he was going one place and go another. I knew something was wrong.
I could tell she was getting stressed. She kind of put on the fake smile when she was like, I'm okay, everything's good. But I could tell that it was getting to her.
By January of 2009, the Schrankers' marriage was already in trouble when Marcus announced he was taking a last-minute out-of-town trip.
He had come home Sunday and said he was going to visit his father down in Florida, which wasn't, unusual.
It was kind of like, okay, if that's where you're going, okay, see you later.
But this trip would be unlike any other. On January 11th, 2009, Marcus took off at 6:45 in the evening from an Indiana airport headed for Destin, Florida. By 9 o'clock, Michelle learned that Marcus never made it to his destination.
I got a call from a control tower, I believe it was in Alabama, asking for his cell number. They said they had lost contact. I didn't think much of it. I mean, it's not uncommon to lose contact.
But later that night, Michelle's phone rang a second time.
About 12:30, I got another call from the Air Force. That's when I knew something was really wrong.
Marcus's plane was nowhere to be found. And that was just the beginning of a bizarre story. One that would soon make the Schrankers household names. In December of 2007, a year before Marcus Schranker's mysterious disappearance, his wife Michelle had a sneaking suspicion he was up to no good. He was spending so much time away from home that Michelle began to wonder if there was another woman.
Something in my gut just said, this isn't right.
Just something's not right about it. And that's when I started checking the phone bills.
I started looking in just to see if I could find a similar number that was called over and over again. And I happened to find one that was called every day about the same time every morning and about the same time every night.
The phone number belonged to a woman who worked at the airport where the Schrankers stored their private plane.
When I confronted him, he said she was just a friend. Nobody talks to a friend for 2 months, 5 times a day, every morning, every night.
Michelle was determined to prove that Marcus was cheating. So she enlisted her nanny Rachel to help her do it. The other woman lived in Rachel's apartment building.
There were nights when he would not show up at home, so
I would ask Rachel if she would look outside her window to see if
she could see his car.
It was dark, so I couldn't really see anything. So I got in my car and I drove past and I saw his car. So I drove by a second time and then I drove by a third time just to make sure, because it was a very obvious car that I knew was his.
It looked like Marcus was a cheater. But Michelle, a devout Catholic, believed in for better or for worse. Determined to keep her marriage going, she demanded Marcus end his affair.
He said he wouldn't talk to her anymore. I made him make the call in front of me. And then he still continued to talk to her.
He would move out for a day or two and then he'd move back in, and then for a couple weeks it would be okay, and then it would blow up again.
After sharing her husband with another woman for over a year, Michelle finally had enough. She filed for divorce on September 30th, 2008.
I told him I would only do this so long, and I gave him a year.
I was not starting a new year with her in it.
But the very next day, Michelle would learn that Marcus was much more than a cheater.
It was New Year's Eve, and I was still in bed, and my 6-year-old was watching cartoons, and he came up to get me and said, "There's a policeman downstairs that wants to talk to you." When I got down there, I was shocked to see this police officer and several other people behind him.
While Michelle's husband was on a tropical getaway with his girlfriend, Indiana authorities raided their home and Marcus's office.
They took all of our computers, a lot of old boxes that had files. Marcus had kept in his office.
Marcus, the financial golden boy, was under investigation for bilking his clients out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. According to investigators, he had created a phony investment scheme called the Euro Fund.
I said, I don't even know what a Euro Fund is. Just can you explain to me what a Euro Fund is? And she said, it's what your husband had clients invest in. And it doesn't exist, and now they're looking for their money.
We lost around $150,000. We were shocked because we had trusted him totally.
According to investigators, at least 8 lawsuits were pending against Marcus. If convicted, he could spend years in prison.
I had no idea what was going on.
The first person you want there is your husband to fix it and to tell you what's going on. And he's sitting in Key West.
When Marcus finally showed up, he didn't have much to say.
He just kept saying, everything will be fine. It's a mistake. I'll take care of it.
But first, Marcus insisted he had to fly down to Florida for a last-minute trip to see his dad.
He dumped it in her lap and tried to take off and leave it to her to clean up the mess.
At 6:45 p.m. on January 11th, 2009, Marcus took off from a local airport. Later that same night, Michelle received startling news. The plane he was piloting was missing.
He took off from Anderson Municipal Airport, which is just north of Indianapolis. He made a distress call somewhere over central Alabama to the FAA, said his windshield had imploded.
In response to the distress call, the Air Force sent fighter jets to search for the plane. And what they saw inside was mind-boggling.
They looked and did not see anybody in the cockpit.
A plane that appeared to have no pilot.
I was like, where did he go? How did he get out of the plane?
Where in the world? Just 2 days after he was accused of investment fraud, Michelle Schranker's estranged husband disappeared into thin air. And the mystery surrounding his missing plane only deepened when investigators showed up at Michelle's door at 3 in the morning.
They came inside and said they needed to talk to me.
They told me his plane had gone down, but that they were out looking for him because there was nobody in the plane, which I just found a little puzzling, but a little relief that there was still hope that he was okay.
Investigators had discovered Marcus's empty plane crashed in a swamp in Milton, Florida.
At first I was thinking, well, maybe he did hit his head and he's wandering around in the swamp, confused or hurt or something.
But what investigators found next told a much different story.
When he radioed the FAA, he said that his windshield had imploded, and when they later found the wreckage, they found the windshield of the plane to be intact. So it's pretty clear that that was a fake distress call.
Investigators were no longer convinced this was an accident. They began to wonder if the daredevil pilot had jumped out of the plane in mid-flight, leaving the airplane to crash on its own.
I was just like, I am in some sort of
Sick dream of something. What do you mean parachuted out?
There were a lot of things in his life that kind of all came down at the same time. And that suggests, I guess from a psychological standpoint, what would be his motivation for bailing out of this plane.
Could it be true? Had the embattled financial investor tried to fake his own death so he could escape mounting legal troubles back home?
I think that he thought that he was smart enough to autopilot that plane right into the Gulf of Mexico. He'd already radioed in that the windshield had imploded and he was bleeding profusely. So if the plane goes down in the ocean, they can't find him, they can't find the plane. I definitely think he thought he was going to get away with it.
But that's not how it played out. Marcus Schranker was now at the center of a nationwide manhunt.
I know his world was
Caving in on him, but
There's no way to get away with all of this. There's nowhere to run. It's all gonna catch up with you. You can't leave 3 kids behind and your family.
Marcus was in big trouble and taking his family down with him. As soon as word got out that Marcus had disappeared, the Schrenkers' financial assets were frozen. Meanwhile, rumors were flying around Cocktail Cove. Everyone wanted to know if the woman who lived in one of the biggest houses on the block knew what her husband was up to.
I think the gut reaction with Michelle and Marcus is that they're both involved somehow. The image of this wealthy, beautiful couple living in a mansion-like home, you kind of assume that they come as a package deal.
After all, the stay-at-home mom was even listed as CFO of her husband's company.
I simply wrote out the checks. That's it.
Writing out checks doesn't mean I know everything about what he was doing. I wasn't turning a blind eye. I wasn't doing anything. I trusted him. You're supposed to trust your husband.
And even though she lost $150,000, good friend Kathy Boone stood by Michelle.
She paid the bills, and she raised her children, so it wasn't like she had hands-on. She was caught off guard as much as we were.
She was angry at him that this was going on, but she was also worried for his safety too, because he is the father of her children.
Michelle had every reason to worry about her husband. Things were about to get even worse.
And I just kept saying, it just doesn't seem like something he would do.
Are you sure it's him?
On January 12, 2009, the search was still on for Michelle Schrenker's missing husband. It appeared that Marcus tried to fake his own death by parachuting out of his plane in midair.
Who imagines in 2 weeks you're filing for a divorce, your house is being, searched, and then within another week your husband's gonna crash a plane? No one in their right mind can anticipate something like this happening.
She was exhausted. She wasn't sleeping because she had no idea what was going on, but she was trying to hold it together as best she could for the kids because she didn't want them to know.
Finally, the hunt for Marcus ended on January 13th, when the embattled financial investor was discovered at a local Florida campground.
We had the TV on and they said they had found him with his wrist cut in the tent.
He had slit his wrist in an apparent suicide attempt, and they basically found him in a pool of his own blood and took him to the hospital.
It just seems so sad and pathetic and just so lonely.
Marcus recovered from his injuries. On June 5th, 2009, he pled guilty to destruction of an aircraft and making a false distress call to the Coast Guard.
It was sad to me what he had become and where he was. I just wish he would have asked for help.
I think he was just way too far in over his head. And I think pushed against a wall, he wasn't gonna live like that.
In August of 2009, Marcus Schrenker was sentenced to 4 years in prison. And his troubles are far from over. He still faces 9 counts of securities fraud.
You get away with things for so long, and there becomes a sense of power that, you're invincible. And for a long time was able to get away with a lot. He took people's money and fooled a lot of people in the process.
No matter what anyone says, Marcus maintains he's innocent and plans to fight the charges in court. Ever since her husband turned their once picture-perfect life upside down, Michelle Schrenker has struggled to come to grips with it all. She's now a working mom, trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
I know I can't carry this anger forever for him, for what he did. And I know I'll have to forgive him someday, because I can't carry this for me or my kids.
But it's hard to leave the past behind when so many still think you're in on it.
People who said they were friends of Michelle's and Marcus's stopped talking to her. They thought, well, she had to have known because that's her husband.
Well, you definitely learn who your friends are when something bad happens, and that definitely rings true in my life, in every sense of the word. I don't think anything bigger than this can happen.
Kathy Spires thought she had found the love of her life.
Steve became Prince Charming to me. I felt really special. I felt that I mattered.
Steve was definitely mysterious.
But soon, Kathy would learn that her husband was far more mysterious than she bargained for.
He said he had worked for the CIA. Scary stuff.
Steve made up so many stories about where he'd been, what he'd done, what he was running from.
Who did Kathy Spires really marry?
How could this quiet, meek knight be this mercenary killer?
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always what they seem. As to something that you would rather forget, sometimes a fresh start is all you need. Kathy Spires knows this firsthand.
I grew up in Southern California where I drank and partied, and drinking got really out of control for me in my life.
As a single mother to a 9-year-old, Kathy knew she had to make a change. By the time she turned 30, she had finally beaten her addiction to alcohol.
I wanted to go to a new place where I could build new memories with my daughter. We would, fresh start.
In the summer of 1980, Kathy and her daughter moved from Southern California to Denver, Colorado, to start a new life.
I wanted to open up a beauty salon, and it took me some time to do that. So I was working part-time as a waitress.
And at that waitress job, Kathy met a mysterious busboy named Steve Markham.
He followed me around like nobody's business. I didn't really think too much of him.
Steve was not a rock star by no means, but she was becoming more and more attracted to a guy that she was not really physically all that attracted to.
He sent me a dozen roses at work, long stem roses. And although I wasn't attracted to him, I really began to like his heart and his spirit.
Soon, Steve and Kathy began to date. And as their romance took off, Steve continued to up the ante.
One day I was taking a bubble bath. My daughter came in and she said, "Mom, you gotta come out here." So I followed her out to the driveway. And in the driveway was a copper-colored Porsche. And I go, "What is that?" She handed me the keys and she goes, "Mom, Steve gave you that car."
Kathy immediately began to wonder how a busboy could afford such extravagance. As the couple grew closer, Steve began to open up about his past.
He had no brothers or sisters, and he was raised by elderly parents.
Steve told Kathy that both his parents had passed away, leaving all their assets to him.
His father was an artist and made chess pieces, and many of them were made out of gold. And he had them turned into gold bars because he was going to sell them.
The place where Steve stored his gold was very unusual, to say the least.
Steve put the gold bars in his toilet tank. That was pretty weird. And when I asked him, "Why don't you go take it to the bank?" he didn't trust the banks.
All of the intrigue made Kathy fall even harder for Steve. But her good friend Nancy Valentino wasn't as easily impressed.
These stories were so bizarre. My thought was, Kathy has flipped out.
Kathy had flipped for Steve. And in the summer of 1981, less than a year after they met, Steve and Kathy were married.
It was really a fun day. It was in a Golden, Colorado, in a hunting lodge. Beautiful surrounding nature. Couldn't have been more beautiful in every way.
Back home in Denver, the couple settled into their new life together. But just a few months later, Steve made a shocking confession about his past.
He said he had worked for the CIA, and apparently he had killed this guy in a bar, defending his girlfriend's honor. The person he killed was a civilian, which was something that you don't do.
Fearing retribution, Steve claimed he had left the agency without its blessing and was now on the run from a former CIA operative.
He told me that. he was planning on blackmailing the government, and that he wrote an expose who he was supposed to assassinate by orders of our government. Scary stuff.
Kathy was stunned. But a woman's heart is a funny thing.
I think I was really beginning to start getting afraid, but I loved him.
Kathy chose to forgive Steve for keeping his past as a CIA hitman a secret. And over the next 3 years, life for the couple was smooth sailing. But one spring day in 1984, when Kathy returned home from a trip, things began to get extremely strange.
When I came back from my trip, instead of my Porsche being in the driveway where it always was, no Porsche. Where is it? What happened?
Steve claimed that the CIA had caught up with him at last and had frozen his assets. They had impounded Kathy's car. Kathy had heard enough.
I said, you go figure it out. Don't come back until you can prove to me that we're safe. I'm going to ask you questions and I want answers.
But Kathy had no idea that her quest for answers would uncover a far darker side to her husband. Darker than she could ever imagine.
Steve was like an onion, and the more the layers I took off, the more rotten it became.
Years into her marriage, Kathy Spires had no idea who her husband really was. Steve claimed he was a former CIA hitman and that the agency wanted him back.
He said they're going to recruit me to join the Black Op again. They may try to blackmail me and say, if you don't do it, we're going to kill her. We're going to kill your family.
Terrified for the safety of herself and her young daughter, Kathy asked Steve to leave their home and not return until he severed his CIA ties for good. Steve went to Florida, where he said he would speak with his former boss. A few weeks later, he contacted Kathy.
Steve gives me a call from Florida and says that he's pretty sure it's cleared up. But when he comes back, he didn't give me proof. And I said, what do you have? And he couldn't really answer me.
Steve's dubious response didn't sit well with Kathy. She pressed him for more information.
Steve told me, my real name is Eric Stone, and I'm not lying about that, and that's the truth. And I was building up the point that I cussed probably for an hour. Man, I can still feel it raging. And I said, I need to find out who you are. I need to know where you're from.
So Steve, now Eric, volunteered to take Kathy to his hometown of Exeter, California.
I said, if I catch you in any more lies, I'm going to drop you off on the freeway, and you will not be with me.
Once in Exeter, Eric led Kathy to his childhood home.
So we end up in front of this field of dirt and weeds. It's vacant, and there's no house. And it was explained, that there was a fire, that everything he had burned up in that fire.
The next stop was the local cemetery, where Eric said his parents were buried.
So I get out of the car, start looking on the ground for headstones. And I'm looking for a last name, Stone, because his real name was Stone.
But his parents' graves had mysteriously vanished. Distraught, Eric claimed the CIA must have moved them.
He's on the ground and he's pulling at the grass. He begins to sob, screaming. Tears are coming out of his eyes. He's wailing.
After such a display of anguish, Kathy believed her husband must be telling the truth. Still, she needed more reassurance, so Kathy made Eric take her to a place where she was sure to dig up his past. His old high school.
So he asked for the yearbook, and the first thing I see is a message from Eric, president of the class. I went, wow. But I go down and read it. It's Eric Wright. W-R-I-G-H-T.
It was yet another lie. Eric's last name wasn't really Stone either. It was Wright.
And he flips over to another page, and I see Eric Wright, most dependable. Another one, Eric on the debate team. And I don't know what to do or what to think. He just lied to me again.
And true to form, Eric had another excuse for Kathy.
Eric told me that his name was Eric Stone because it was just too dangerous for me to know the truth.
Kathy returned home to Colorado with far more questions than answers.
I never really quite felt about him the way I did in the beginning. But again, I'm stuck, I'm married, I made vows.
Kathy wanted to believe him. And the fact is he had spun such a story in the beginning that he was able to kind of tie some facts together.
Kathy decided to accept Eric's story and pressed no further. But over the next 8 years, their relationship suffered ups and downs of a different kind, as Eric turned cold and detached.
Eric was not caring, not coming home, not being supportive in any way in my life.
And that was just the beginning. Eric's behavior was about to take a sinister turn that would leave Kathy fearing for her own life.
And he was on top of me and he said, "Don't F with me. I am a killer. I will kill you."
In the fall of 1992, Kathy Spires was determined to get her rocky marriage to Eric back on track. She had an idea for a Christmas gift that she hoped would bring them closer together.
I started thinking about extra high school and that all of his family's gone, and I thought it'd be just nice, since he had a fire in his house, to get him a high school yearbook so he'll have those memories.
Kathy called the school, and in a fortuitous twist, the man on the other end turned out to be her husband's old buddy, Chuck Knox.
Eric was very well liked, kind of a fair-haired golden boy at Exeter High School. He was a very intelligent, articulate, and was definitely Casanova.
But that wasn't all Chuck knew. And when Kathy dug for more details, she got the shock of her life.
Chuck says, he had a sister. I said, no, he didn't have any sisters or brothers. He said, well, I went to school with his sister. I said, well, but you know, his mom died. His mom died when he was in high school. He said, no. I'm going, what?
Kathy couldn't believe it, and I could tell the wheels were spinning in her head.
Oh my God. I'm trying to be cool because what if, I'm imagining in my head how this could be.
Pressed by Kathy, Chuck went on to reveal one disturbing detail after another.
One of the gals he'd gone out with apparently died at a young age. It was suspected suicide. The speculation that she went off the deep end after Eric broke up with her.
I hung up the phone and I felt sick. I didn't know what I was going to do.
But confronting a potentially dangerous pathological liar is a risky proposition.
And I'm like, oh crap, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I acted like nothing happened.
Kathy desperately tried to ignore the truth about her husband, but Eric was rapidly becoming her worst nightmare. And when she turned to a therapist for help, Eric went off the deep end.
He started a fight, and he threw me into a wall, and he was on top of me, and he said, "Don't F with me. I am a killer. I will kill you if you don't leave my past alone."
I'm a killer!
That's when I met Eric Wright.
He hurt her. He physically hurt her. Kathy's a little bitty thing. She did not know who he was.
After 12 years together, Kathy now knew she could no longer stay with such a dangerous man.
I wanted to get her over with, to move on. I gave him far too much of my time.
But on February 13th, 1993, Eric beat Kathy to it and served her with divorce papers. When Eric moved out, Kathy concocted a plan.
I'm sitting there just thinking about all of the stuff. I'm going, I gotta find some answers. And I started making phone calls.
No longer fearing her husband's wrath, Kathy embarked on a desperate search to uncover everything about Eric's secret past. She began by placing another call to Chuck Knox.
Kathy was very upset at what he had done to her. This became her life goal, is to find out the secret.
I found out not only was he married before, but that he had been married to 2 other women, and he'd had 2 children.
So this blew her away, and she was not going to let him get away with it.
Chuck put Kathy in touch with Eric's former wife, who had a devastating story to tell.
On their little girl's birthday, Eric was supposed to go to the store, pick up supplies. He went to the store, but never came back.
Eric Wright had attempted to pull off the impossible.
Eric staged his disappearance, but the Department of Justice interviewed a bunch of people and found out that he was a voluntary missing person.
When he went missing, he had a Honda, and he shot a bullet hole in that Honda, and of all things, he put animal blood on it. What the heck?
Since Eric was officially declared a missing person and was never divorced from his last wife, the validity of his marriage to Kathy stood in question.
He was married when he married me. He was a bigamist. Scumbag bigamist.
So once the lies started being exposed, she was just ruthless.
Kathy would soon find out exactly what her husband had been hiding from.
He was a murderer, and just for money.
And she's about to get the ultimate revenge.
I think if Kathy would have never come forward, the case would have never been solved.
By the spring of 1993, Kathy Spires was well on her way to uncovering the truth about her ex-husband Eric's secret past. And she had just formed a new ally, San Joaquin County Assistant Sheriff John Huber.
I told Detective Huber I'd been married to a man, and when I met him, he has all these gold bars, a lot of gold bars. And that's what struck Huber.
We had a case. The body was found in 1980 in the California aqueduct, and the body was clothed, no shoes, and it had the chain tied with cable ties around the hands and feet. And in the investigation, he's missing gold bars, and it's an unsolved case.
The corpse was that of Lester Marks, a petty thief who would melt jewelry into gold bars. After hearing Kathy's story, Assistant Sheriff Huber reopened the case to see if they could link Eric Wright to Lester's murder.
The Department of Justice had done an investigation when Eric staged his disappearance over in the Bay Area, and I pulled out the actual old file with some of the evidence that they'd collected.
In 1980, when Eric had staged his disappearance, he was working as a precious metals dealer, and police had found some very strange items at his office.
In his desk drawer, it had a number of cable ties, one that was very, very close in size to the cable ties that Lester Marks was bound with.
But even more telling was what was found during the original murder investigation, an item that at the time was overlooked.
The police found right next to the bed of Lester Marks' house a notepad written Eric Wright and a phone number.
Sometimes it's right under your nose.
Things were beginning to add up, and in November of 1993, Assistant Sheriff Huber flew to Denver to interrogate Eric Wright.
He denied he never knew Lester Marks, never heard of Lester Marks, and didn't know what I was talking about.
But Huber wasn't buying it, and Eric Wright was summoned for questioning in the death of Lester Marks.
They sent him an invitation to go to a grand jury, and you can either show up or run. He ran straight to Mexico.
While Eric was enjoying the sun and sand, investigators carefully built their case against him.
Eric was in Mexico 4 or 5 years, living on the beach, until the FBI got an arrest warrant to have him
extradited back to the United States.
Finally, on April 29, 2002, after nearly 23 years on the run, Eric Wright was arrested in the death of Lester Marks. To avoid a murder trial, he pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter.
I think if Kathy would have never come forward, the case would have never been solved.
I was so happy. It was a nice present.
But Kathy's elation would be short-lived. Eric Wright was released from prison in 2007 after serving only 4.5 years.
She has lived this for 30 years, and it has consumed her. He haunts her.
Today, Kathy lives a quiet life in Arizona and will never forget her biggest mistake, marrying the wrong man.
At this point, I don't think Kathy will marry again unless she leaves this behind her. And I don't know if Kathy has let it go yet.
The lesson that I learned is If you have low self-esteem, this is no time to be looking for Mr. Correct, because you're vulnerable to anybody out there that's preying on someone to hide behind.
And today, Kathy has a very different take on dating a man of mystery.
I would never date a man that came to me and said, I have a mysterious past. And that's when it's a good thing to be quiet, and you just agree, and you back up slowly.
Tammy McCreary thought Mr. Right was just a myth.
I was not looking for love. I was looking to just enjoy being single.
Until a handsome young doctor swept her off her feet.
He was Eric Petit, the perfect gentleman. Eric Petit, the great husband.
But Tammy would soon discover that her fairy tale romance was based on lies instead of love.
If he was an actor, I'd say give the man an Oscar.
I had no idea what this person was capable of.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Tammy McCreary had never been lucky in love.
I had dated some characters, so I know all the games, I know all the stories.
So when the mother of three went out to an Atlanta club one night in November 2007, love was the last thing on her mind. Until Eric Petit strolled by her table.
We kind of made eye contact, and I thought he was cute. The next time he came by, he just threw money over the area where I was sitting, and everyone was like, okay, well, drinks are on Tammy.
Eric told Tammy that he had just moved to town from Chicago and was looking for a place to buy. Tammy, a mortgage broker, gave him her card. 2 days later, Eric called, but he was more interested in Tammy than a house.
He said that he was an electrical engineer for one of the local utility companies. We started having lunch every day, and we talked all night. So things were moving pretty fast.
He was the kind of guy that would open doors for you. He would rub Tammy's feet, buy her flowers. He was a gentleman to her, and she seemed very happy.
As the relationship took off, Eric told Tammy some of the secrets of his past. He too had been married and had 2 young sons and a stepdaughter. But after his divorce, his life had taken a tragic turn.
In one of our conversations, he just mentioned his children. And of course, I wanted to know, okay, so where are your children? And he said his boys are deceased. And his parents were also deceased, and that they were all killed in a crash. So me being a mother, hearing that just sent chills through me.
In tears, Eric showed Tammy his son's death certificates. But that wasn't the end of the story. Eric told Tammy that before the accident, he had been an ER doctor in Chicago.
Eric did show me transcripts from University of Chicago, but he said that he could not practice after the death of his children. I thought it was sad that now he wasn't doing what was really in his heart to do because of the tragedy.
But 3 weeks after they started dating, Dr. Petit was called into action in spite of himself.
As we were driving, there's like a 3-car collision in front of us. And I said, Eric, you gotta help those people. And so he jumped out of the car and he proceeded to help everyone. And I was impressed.
Just 1 month after they met, Eric found another way to impress Tammy. He asked her to marry him.
I said yes, but I made it clear that before we did anything, I definitely wanted us to have counseling.
But only 5 months later, Tammy would regret this leap of faith. On the night of May 18, 2008, at 6 p.m., the love of Tammy's life went in to work a night shift and never came home. For months, reliable Eric always let Tammy know where he was.
Well, Eric always called me to see how I was doing. So this particular Sunday, it was really strange that I had not heard from him.
The next morning, when Tammy still had no word from Eric, panic began to set in.
So I called both cell phones. There was no answer. I waited a while and I tried the cell phones again. Still no response. So I called the hospital. I called in the emergency department.
What Tammy heard next would tear her new life apart. Eric had been at the hospital that night, but there was more to his visit than Tammy could have ever imagined.
I was at ground zero. I could not believe it.
Eric was very smart, but I've always heard that it's a thin line between genius and insanity.
In December of 2007, 5 months before Eric Petit suddenly vanished, he took his new fiancée, Tammy McCreary, out for a special surprise.
He wanted to go shop for rings, so he went to a store and he said, let's look at a 3-carat peerless in the antique setting. And the salesperson said, okay, this is $30,000. And I'm like, $30,000. So Eric says to him, well, just give me a day or two.
But later that night, Eric got a devastating phone call.
Well, I was sitting in the living room watching television with my mother, and Eric called her upstairs to speak with her for a second. Then I just heard a loud outburst. So I ran upstairs, and he was laying in my mother's lap, and he was crying very, very hard.
Through his tears, Eric told Tammy that his 12-year-old stepdaughter had committed suicide. As Tammy tried to comfort Eric, he explained that his ex-wife had no money for her funeral.
He was told that it was going to take $30,000 to cover the service, and he needed to take care of it. And I mean, I understood. And so I told him, we'll deal with the ring later.
Tammy suggested that Eric move in with her so he wouldn't be alone. But not everyone thought it was a good idea.
Everything was just coming all of a sudden, so I didn't trust him very much at all. I was like, you meet this guy who's not even from Atlanta, he's just moved here from Chicago, his family's dead. I said, what if he killed his family?
Tammy may have been in love, but she had 3 children to protect. So she decided to get Eric checked out.
I contacted a friend of mine who has a security firm, and I gave him Eric's information. And he came back to me and he says he's clean. He has nothing. So that made me feel very comfortable.
But one detail was rather puzzling. Nothing turned up about the accident that killed his children.
Whenever Eric talked about his children and the accident, he was very emotional. I've never seen a man cry like that, so I felt like he needed support.
So Tammy put her concerns about Eric behind her and focused on the wedding. To her delight, Eric took care of the invitations. And when the guests started to respond, she got a big surprise.
I had people calling me saying, Eric's a doctor? I didn't know you were marrying a doctor. So he showed me a copy of the invitations, and it said, Doctor and Tammy. He says, well, it was really supposed to be a wedding present for you. I'm going back into medicine.
Eric told Tammy he had been offered a job in the emergency room at a nearby hospital. It would begin after the wedding.
When he said that he was going to be starting working at the hospital, I was thinking, well, maybe there is some truth to this guy, so let's give it a shot.
4 months after they met, Tammy married her handsome doctor in a small ceremony in their living room.
I was very excited to know that I was going to be a doctor's wife. I just felt like This was the prayer that was answered. This was like a fairy tale.
Over the next 2 months, Tammy settled into life as a stay-at-home doctor's wife.
I would drive to the hospital every day, drop him off, and go back in the evenings and pick him up. Some days he would go in with a lab coat and he would come home in scrubs.
But sometimes Eric's new job seemed to take a toll.
There were a few times he would call very upset, telling me stories of a child coming in an accident and he couldn't save the child. There were a few occasions when he would get a call 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and he would have to leave and go to the hospital.
And the more Eric was gone, the more Tammy began to wonder. She had heard a few stories of doctors running off with their nurses.
I knew he was young, he was attractive, and he was the new guy at the hospital. So, I just started paying attention to different things.
Before long, Tammy found something that seemed to confirm her biggest fear. A sexy text message that had nothing to do with work.
Once I read the text message, it just didn't seem professional. So I just decided to call the number.
Tammy knew whoever picked up her call might very well ruin her fairy tale marriage. But she couldn't stop herself from dialing.
We were just like, oh my goodness, who is this guy?
Tammy McCreary sometimes worried that her new husband Eric might be too good to be true. So when she found a suspicious text on Eric's cell phone, she instantly feared the worst.
I just decided I would call that number back. And of course it was a young lady. And she was like really friendly, like, hi. And I said, this is Eric's wife. Who are you? And her response was, if you want to know who I am, I suggest you ask your husband.
That night, Tammy got ready to have it out with her man.
I waited about 30 minutes, and then Eric comes charging into the bedroom. I've never seen him this angry. He says, you almost cost me my job. Do you know that was my superior that you called? And I just felt like some little teenager playing a little silly game.
Ashamed that her snooping could have cost Eric everything, Tammy decided to trust her husband, for better or for worse. But less than 2 months later, that trust would be destroyed forever. On May 18th, 2008, the good doctor went in to work a night shift. But when the next morning arrived with no word from Eric, Tammy knew something was seriously wrong.
I called both cell phones. There was no answer. So I said, well, I've never called the hospital, but I think I need to call today. Well, I called in the emergency department and they put me on hold. Then they came back and they said, ma'am, there's not a Dr. Petit here. And I said, okay. Well, I know they can't possibly know all of the doctors, so I decided to call the cell phone back. And this time, I got an answer. So I asked for Dr. Petit. And the lady says, oh, are you talking about the guy that was using this cell phone? And I said, yes, because now I'm thinking, okay, finally, somebody knows Dr. Petit.
But what the woman said next was the last thing Tammy expected to hear.
She says, oh, well, you need to call security because that guy was arrested for impersonating a doctor last night. And I just lost it.
Police were called when a nurse reported that a man she didn't recognize had been hanging around the emergency room. The man was Dr. Eric Petit, but the hospital had no idea who he was.
He's dressed like a doctor from head to toe. He has a doctor's badge. He had taped his photo over the photo of the actual doctor on the badge. He had a prescription pad and some prescription drugs. And he was certainly getting around different controlled areas of the hospital.
For weeks, Tammy's husband Eric managed to roam the hospital undetected. And surprisingly, he had just one motive for playing doctor.
Most fraud cases involve people who are trying to get money. And it appeared that this guy was there to hit on women. One of the spokeswomen for the hospital said some of the female staffers described him as adorable.
But if Eric had been playing doctor just to meet women, what else was he lying about? Tammy was determined to find out.
Immediately, I just wanted to just start investigating everything that he had ever told me. I started going through his clothes. I was going through pockets, looking for pieces of paper, just anything. There was a duffel bag that was in the closet, and in the duffel bag, I saw papers.
Eric's web of lies was far from over, and Tammy was about to learn just how far he would go to deceive her.
I had no idea what this person was capable of.
If you have a story of marriage gone wrong and would like to appear on this series, go to investigation.discovery.com. The day she found out her husband was arrested for impersonating a doctor, Tammy McCreary started her own investigation to find out who Eric Petit really was.
I was so afraid that someone would come back and say, hey, his name isn't Eric Petit. I mean, I just did not know what to expect.
Deep in Eric's duffel bag, Tammy uncovered another secret. A probation notice from the courts of Chicago.
So at that point, I'm thinking like, wow, I figured it had to be bad.
The probation officer explained to Tammy that Eric had been charged with check fraud, and there was a warrant out for his arrest. But then she heard something even worse.
And she confirmed that he did have 2 children. I said, were they deceased? And she says, no, not that I know of. So I looked at the death certificate and I contacted the funeral home. And they had never heard of any persons in there with those names.
The tragedy that had opened Tammy's heart to Eric was one of the most shocking lies of all. Eric had 2 sons by 2 different mothers, and both boys, along with his parents, were very much alive. What kind of man could lie about the deaths of his children?
That lie really scared me because now I had no idea what this person was capable of.
That really changed everything. It's one thing to just lie about your profession, but for him to say that his kids are dead, that is so heartless.
Eric had faked it all. The death certificates, the medical school transcripts, even his stepdaughter's suicide. It seemed the only thing Eric hadn't lied about was his name.
I wouldn't come out of the house. I didn't talk on the phone. I did nothing because I just could not believe that I allowed him to suck me into this with all those lies.
Even Tammy's background check had failed her. She had used the information on Eric's driver's license, and it was phony too. Now, instead of feeling careful, she felt like a fool.
I think her guards were totally down, which had not been that way for many, many years. And everything he had said, he had proven to her, so she had no reason to question.
On December 15th, 2009, Eric Petit negotiated a deal and pled guilty to identity fraud and theft. he was sentenced to 42 months in prison. But before he went in, he apologized to Tammy on the local news.
Tammy, you know, I'm very, very sorry for the things that I sent you through.
There was no doubt Tammy's luck in love had run out. Today, Tammy McCreary has made many changes. She has a job she loves, and for the first time in years, she's the one making the decisions.
My mom is doing wonderful today. I love this person that she has become.
I am finally independent. I have my own life, and I'm just enjoying life. I'm enjoying my children.
But there's one thing Tammy isn't doing: dating.
As far as relationship, it's kind of like she's hit the delete button on that whole chapter. I believe that if someone was trying to ask her out, she wouldn't go out.
I don't think that you could ever truly know someone. That is a very scary thought. But I will say, dismiss nothing. Things that seem to be small and little, don't dismiss it.
Ricky Lee Beneke first met policeman Jeff Pilo. She thought she had found her lifelong protector.
My first thought was, oh my gosh, he is so hot.
A lot of my friends said that my parents had like the perfect marriage. They were very much in love.
But the police motto to protect and serve wasn't exactly what Ricky Lee's husband had in mind.
He betrayed everybody here. He betrayed this whole community.
And when he crossed the thin blue line, Ricky Lee had no idea what to believe.
They got the wrong man. Who am I going to believe? None of it made sense.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always as they seem. Ricky Lee Beneke was raised to always stand by the people she loves.
I always believed that I was a very faithful person. Never saw the bad in people. I always tried to find the good.
In the summer of 1987, when she was just 17, Ricky Lee saw plenty of good in 22-year-old Jeff Pilo.
He was in the service in the Navy. He had a great smile. It just lit up his whole face. We started going out to movies and dinner and realized we just couldn't be apart.
A few months later, Jeff got out of the Navy, and their relationship began to take off. Within a year, they were married in a simple church ceremony.
It was a church that I went to growing up. We had wanted to have a nice, perfect little wedding, but my dad had some serious health problems at the time, so it was just 5 people in there, but we were both happy.
I trusted Jeff implicitly. They were a total couple. I mean, it seemed like they'd be together forever.
Money was tight for the newlyweds until June of 1989, when Jeff found a new way to serve his country by joining the police force in Bloomington, Illinois.
He always knew he wanted to get into law enforcement, and I always liked that he had a plan. He set out to make the streets a safer place.
The work was hard and the hours were long, but 6 years and 3 children later, Jeff and Ricky Lee still managed to keep the spark alive.
We would have 3 nights a month where it would be just the 2 of us. I'd plan a night, he'd plan a night. He'd bring me flowers, that sort of thing.
It was a great childhood. He'd always spend time with us. We always thrived on our daddy time.
But it wasn't always easy. As Jeff climbed the ladder at work, the night shifts and emergency calls became more frequent. The unusual hours began to take a toll.
He wanted to work as much as he could, but it was just hard as a police wife to get used to feeling like the job was more important sometimes.
But the effort paid off when Jeff was honored by a local organization as Policeman of the Year. In the summer of 2000, Jeff was promoted to sergeant, and Ricky Lee was thrilled.
I threw a promotion party for him, had cake, gifts. I had a little coffee mug engraved with Sergeant Pilo on it for him. I was so proud of him.
The future looked bright for the Pilo family. But 6 years later, all of that promise would suddenly disappear. On the afternoon of June 10th, 2006, Ricky Lee and the kids were driving home from the movies. Jeff was at the station and had just taken an exam for another big promotion.
We turned down the road our house was on, and I noticed a couple of vehicles there. I recognized them as being police vehicles, but not marked. My first thought was, Jeff had a bunch of people over after the test to relax and unwind from the test. Okay.
But the police weren't there for a party.
I had seen the assistant chief of police. I was like, there's no way he'd be here after a test for any type of gathering.
My heart just dropped, because you're taught your entire life, if you ever see another cop at your house, your dad's probably dead.
I got out, went up straight to the assistant chief. He goes, I know what you're thinking, but Jeff's okay. So it's like, oh, huge relief. All right, why are you here?
The Policeman of the Year was about to be stripped of his title, his badge, and ultimately his freedom.
It's the stuff that you see in Hollywood. You don't see this every day.
I was astounded. I was, are you kidding? This is a joke, right?
In the fall of 2002, 4 years before Ricky Lee Pilo arrived home to a house full of policemen, her husband Jeff was hard at work trying to advance his police career.
Jeff's just not a laid-back type of person when it comes to work. When he works, he puts everything into it.
I worked with him almost as closely as a partner. He seemed to be a good friend to people. He would go out of his way to help them.
But at home, the Pilos' once solid marriage was on shaky ground. Jeff's career, always a source of pride, was now pulling them apart.
I really started getting very frustrated with the job, with the amount of hours he was putting in, never being able to see him. I don't think that he really knew where to draw the line.
As the stress built, Jeff started to take it out on Ricky Lee.
He would come home from work. Oh my gosh, when's the last time this house has been clean? This house is a mess.
At times, he could even be cruel, making fun of a hearing defect she was born with.
He would get frustrated about her hearing, and it was like, you're stupid because you can't hear me. And I would get so angry. I said, Jeff, you knew about her hearing when you married her.
Sometimes I felt like I wasn't good enough, or that I didn't do things well enough.
By the spring of 2004, life at home seemed to improve when Jeff gave up the graveyard shifts for good. But he was still out at all hours of the night, and his family didn't always know why.
He liked to go on walks at night. It seems like crazy hours, like 1:30 in the morning.
Jeff would tell me that there was a lot of times he just couldn't sleep, so he would get up and use the computer, take the dog for a walk, whatever, as a way of trying to relax.
While Jeff was releasing his tension from the day, Bloomington police had good reason for stress at night. A troubling new case was keeping them on edge. A serial rapist was on the loose, the first in the town's history. In the past 3 years, there had been 4 attacks, and the details were usually the same.
When the suspect was committing this assault, he was either wearing a ski mask or a scarf over his face. He would use duct tape to bind their wrists.
And it seemed that the rapist knew how to cover his tracks.
It was very frustrating because we had very little evidence. The suspect is taking things with him. He's making the victims bathe. He's doing absolutely everything he can to prevent leaving anything like DNA behind.
Investigators had no solid leads and no idea when the attacker would strike again. Meanwhile, Ricky Lee started to speculate about why her husband was really leaving the house at night. Some signs seemed to point to another woman.
There were times where I just had suspicions, I just had thoughts that, he's having an affair.
Finally, Ricky Lee decided to voice her suspicions.
I actually confronted Jeff about it. He completely denied it. He was angry. Oh, how could you think I was doing that? I can't believe you would even think that.
An affair would have been devastating, but the real reason behind Jeff's late-night forays would be far worse.
I wasn't prowling around anyone's windows. I wasn't prowling around at all.
In June 2006, Jeff Pilo was up for promotion from sergeant to lieutenant in the Bloomington, Illinois PD. But first, he had to pass a big exam. On the night before the test, Ricky Lee urged Jeff to get some rest.
I got in bed and started reading. He said he was going to take a shower, joked around about some stress relief. Told me don't fall asleep. Well, I fell asleep before he got out of the shower. And I remember waking up very early in the morning, and he was laying in bed next to me asleep.
Meanwhile, that same night, the Bloomington police were about to get an unexpected break in their serial rape case. Shortly after midnight, a 911 call came in from the edge of town.
What's your address, man?
On the night of June 10th, 2006, officer gets a call of a suspicious person knocking on the door, and the victim would go to the door and there'd be nobody there. When the officer arrives, he sees a figure with his back pressed up against the house, just trying to be as still as he possibly can. He calls out to the person, "Hey, you, come here, police, I need to talk to you." And the person turned around and walked away. As he's walking away, he's stuffing something in the front of his pants. So the officer drew his gun and it said, "Stop, police."
But when the officer saw the man's face, he couldn't believe who it was.
Eventually, the suspect turned around, and then all of a sudden it's, "Wait a minute, this is my sergeant."
Later that day, around 3 p.m., Ricky Lee was returning home from the movies with the kids. As soon as they reached the driveway, she realized that something was terribly wrong.
My daughter starts to pull in, and I told her to stop because I had seen the assistant chief of police. I told the kids to stay in the car. I got out, went up, straight to the assistant chief. And he goes, "I know what you're thinking, but Jeff's okay." So I was like, "All right, why are you here?" And he said, "Well, he has been arrested, and we do have a search warrant for your house."
The chief explained that Jeff had been caught attempting to break into a woman's house just after midnight. He was briefly detained and then let go.
To me, that made no sense because I never noticed him gone last night. When I went to bed, he was in the shower. I woke up, he was in bed next to me. You're lying.
But later that morning, after Jeff took his test, officers arrested him for stalking and attempted burglary.
I started yelling at the assistant chief and yelling at all the other officers there and really making a scene because it was just beyond belief.
But Ricky Lee would soon learn that the burglary arrest was only the tip of the iceberg. The police were sure they had caught their serial rapist.
Way back in 2003, we found records that our second victim had had her license plate run at a certain time and place that just didn't make sense. Well, the license plate had been run at that time by a in-car computer that was logged in under Jeff Pilo's login. 3 years later, all of a sudden, Jeff Pilo is found outside a woman's house at 1 o'clock in the morning trying to break in.
Convinced of a link, detectives pulled Jeff in for questioning right after his exam. During the interrogation, Jeff's behavior was bizarre.
Alright, houses come up for sale in that area all the time. I'm interested in buying my mother-in-law a house. I was looking to see what kind of access went down to that place. That's all.
To me, that excuse of out looking for a house for my mother-in-law just had a lot of holes. It just didn't make sense. I mean, any police officer knows that you don't go up onto somebody's private property at that time of the morning.
This lady has someone prowling around her windows. There's nobody else out there but you. a very attractive young lady. It wasn't me. I wasn't prowling around anyone's windows. I wasn't prowling around at all.
Later on, when investigators put Jeff in a lineup, things only got worse for him. His striking blue eyes and distinctive voice would become the key to putting him away.
The main physical characteristics that all of the victims described was his eyes, how distinctive his eyes were. There's bright, piercing blue eyes.
Here's the deal. It's going to be half an hour. It's going to be a really bad half an hour for you. But if you don't make any noise, you'll get through.
The one I'll never forget is when we played the voice for our third victim. She literally curled up into a fetal position, pulled into the wall as soon as she heard his voice and said, "That's it, that's him."
As the case built around Jeff Pilo, one person still couldn't believe he was capable of such terrible crimes.
I know without any doubt in my heart that my husband is completely innocent of all these charges.
Ricky Lee stood by her husband, denying the charges to anyone who asked. But police had searched her home and found something so damning that it would shake even Ricky Lee's faith in Jeff.
Jeff says he's innocent. I've always stood by him. It was driving me insane.
Everything fell right in line. All the pieces to the jigsaw puzzle fell together.
If you have a story of marriage gone wrong and would like to appear on this series, go to investigation.discovery.com. In the summer of 2006, Police Sergeant Jeff Pilo stood accused of 4 shocking rapes. But his wife, Ricky Lee, was determined to stand by her man.
I said, we're going to fight this. They cannot prove that he's guilty. Jeff says he's innocent. We'll get through a trial and be fine.
But when police examined the duct tape used to bind the victims, they found the evidence they needed to make their case.
The scientist at the FBI lab found fibers along the edge of the duct tape, and he was able to match those fibers to 2 separate articles of clothing that we found in Jeff Pilo's house. One was a nylon jacket that zippered up, and then also a ski mask. That jacket and that ski mask look exactly like what the victim described them as.
Then, on Jeff's hard drive, investigators made a shocking discovery that convinced them they had their man.
We were able to find pornography on his computer that it wasn't just run-of-the-mill porn, it was searches for brutal rape. There were images of uniformed people committing rapes.
Everything fell right in line. All the pieces to the jigsaw puzzle fell together.
Detectives learned that Jeff's attacks had followed the same pattern. He stalked his victims for months, using police resources to access personal information. Then he waited until the women were home alone at night and broke in. The attacks lasted for hours, and when Jeff was finally finished, he carefully took the evidence with him.
Can't explain to anybody what it's like to sit in one of those small interview rooms with the victim and go over 4 hours of her life when he was doing these things to him.
Still, Ricky Lee's faith in her husband was unshakable. Without any DNA evidence, she clung to the hope that investigators had gotten it all wrong.
As far as the ski mask and the gloves and the coat, in a house full of kids, every house, I'm sure you can go find the same exact items in. Jeff was the most sweetest, loving person. He never laid a hand on the kids or I in any way, shape, or form. Like, this is just a bad dream.
On May 12, 2008, Jeff's trial began, and Ricky Lee sacrificed everything she had to defend him.
We had nothing. My retirement was gone. Our savings, gone. Credit cards all maxed out. Sold the house, all for lawyers.
But it wasn't enough to set Jeff free. A month later, a jury found the former Policeman of the Year guilty on all charges.
And the jury came back and started saying, guilty. I just couldn't believe it. I felt like I felt like I died, that was the end of my life.
Despite a letter from Ricky Lee appealing for leniency, the judge threw the book at Sergeant Jeff Pilo. He was sentenced to 440 years in prison.
And the community looks towards their police officers to help protect them. And, you know, he put everybody here in a bad light, without a doubt. He betrayed everybody here. He betrayed this whole community.
I was just an emotional wreck because this nice, perfect little, wonderful family and life that we had all had was now completely shattered, and I just could not make any sense out of anything.
Today, Ricky Lee has a new apartment, a new job, and a new outlook on life.
I've made a lot of changes in my life and really am happy. I'm at peace, if nothing else.
After years of questioning, Ricky Lee has finally admitted that Jeff may not be innocent, but she's still not absolutely sure that he's guilty.
I gave up on trying to figure it out. It was driving me insane. Jeff says he's innocent. I've always stood by him. I want to believe that, but now I've stopped trying to figure it out, and I am just doing what I can for me to survive and go on.
I love him. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. But I want to know the truth. If this really did happen, come out and say everything, come clean. I just want to be able to know something.
Although Ricky Lee and Jeff remain legally married, she considers their union over.
Well, I'm sad on one hand because I always dreamed that marriage is forever. I also know that while I love Jeff, I always have, I always will. But we don't have a marriage.
When it came to romance, independent Barbara Bentley thought her ship had sailed until she met Rear Admiral John Perry.
He won the Congressional Medal of Honor, and he spoke 7 languages. It was like being in the movies.
But Barbara would quickly discover troubled seas ahead.
He was full of baloney.
And she would find herself drowning in doubt and fighting for her life.
She walked in and immediately smelled a very strong, strange odor.
And he's staring down at me with wild, wild eyes. Devil eyes.
When it comes to love and marriage, things aren't always what they seem.
As a single divorcee living in the suburbs of San Francisco, Barbara Bentley was tough to impress.
I was 35 years old. I was a strong, independent woman. I had a career. I owned my own home. I had a lot of friends. Life was good.
I don't think she was at that point very excited about finding a man. I think she was just happy to be Barbara.
But one night in the summer of 1981, Barbara did meet a man, and a most intriguing man at that.
My girlfriend called me to come and be a fourth for dinner, and that night I met John Perry. He came walking in, very erect posture and his gleaming eyes and ruddy complexion, nicely dressed. It was like, oh, well, he looks nice.
54-year-old John Perry was older than Barbara by 19 years and worked as an international military consultant. But there was far more to his story than that.
He said he was a retired Rear Admiral in the Navy. His father was Admiral Perry that started the Sea Breeze in World War II. And he had stories of how he won the Congressional Medal of Honor in Vietnam. It was a very interesting evening. I had never met somebody so full of history.
I think Barbara was in awe of John when she first met him.
Even by Barbara's high standards, John seemed like quite a catch. The feeling was mutual.
From the minute that we met, John was very attentive to me. He was very focused on making me feel special.
Before long, the two became an item, and John let Barbara in on his past.
John told me that he had 4 children and 2 ex-wives. He said the children were estranged because his military service and he had been gone for too long while they were being raised. And I felt sorry for John because it seemed like he was very hurt about it.
The Admiral also confided in Barbara he would soon be a very wealthy man.
He said he was the black sheep of the family, but he was going to inherit a large amount of money from his grandmother when she passed away. And at that moment I looked at him and I said, well, money doesn't interest me, honesty does.
Barbara hoped to meet John's family one day. In the meantime, their relationship took off. Just over a year after they met, Barbara proudly became Mrs. Admiral John Perry in a small ceremony in Tijuana, Mexico.
We went to this very nice restaurant that John knew about, and when the band came on, they started playing Here Comes the Bride. The whole restaurant kind of joined in, and it was very joyous.
Barbara was thrilled to be an admiral's wife. But just a few months into their marriage, her credit card bills began to pile up.
John liked nice restaurants. He liked nice cars, going on vacations to nice places. And we often wondered, how they could afford to do this.
He would have consulting jobs. Sometimes he would make money on it, and sometimes he wouldn't. John was spending a lot of money, and I kept trying to change him, trying to show him how we could budget better. I would look at it as, well, this is something we just have to work on.
While Barbara tried to keep their spending in check, they still enjoyed a VIP lifestyle. But almost 10 years into their marriage, everything would change. By February of 1991, the couple had weathered their share of ups and downs. But nothing could have prepared Barbara for what would come next.
John was offered a job with the government in Egypt, and we were in Washington, D.C. to get our documentation so that John could carry on with his commission.
After breakfast on their second day, Barbara went back to their hotel room to meet John.
When I walked up to the room, the door was ajar, and I pushed it open and stepped inside. And I looked over to the bathroom, and I noticed a brown bottle sitting on the counter and some latex surgical gloves.
In an instant, Barbara's life would take a horrifying turn.
At that point, he grabbed me, and I started a battle for my life.
In the winter of 1986, 5 years before her marriage would go horribly wrong, Barbara Bentley was content to be the wife of Admiral John Perry.
I felt that John really loved me, that he would bring me presents, he would cook, he would clean. It was like we had this good partnership going.
But still, she was troubled by the fact that in 4 years of marriage, she had never met John's family or his children.
Barbara wanted so much to meet John's family, and John kept giving Barbara excuses like, oh, well, this person called today, but you weren't here, so I couldn't let you talk to them.
I even wrote letters to all these family members, and within a couple weeks, we got all of them back with no such person at this address.
John said, well, they're just not accepting those. They see who it's from, and they think you're a gold digger. They think you married me because you want everything that I have. And Barbara believed this.
Then, one day in the summer of 1987, John told Barbara he had heard from his son when his war medals arrived in the mail.
John started telling me about each one, what it was and what he won it for, and that his son had finally decided to go ahead and send him the medals. I told him, well, we should get those framed so we can put them up on the wall, and we did.
2 years later, in January of 1989, John proudly wore his Medal of Honor when he took Barbara to President George Bush's inaugural ball.
People would just step aside and let us walk through. The first person to stop and salute us was the President of the United States. It was very exciting. Just the whole day was very exciting.
But less than a year later, the thrill was gone, along with John's medals. It all started when 2 FBI agents showed up at their front door.
They wanted to know if John was home, and I said, well, no, he isn't. And they said, well, we have something here. Would you give it to him? And I said, no, you'll have to come back and give it to him later. I'd been told by John not to ever accept anything. And I just was very shocked that the FBI would be at my door.
Soon after they left, Barbara noticed something strange in the living room.
I was sitting in there waiting for John to come home, and I noticed that the medals were missing off the wall.
When John returned, Barbara asked him what was going on.
He said, well, the frame was falling apart, and I took it to the frame shop. And I said, well, isn't it strange you took your medals with it? And I was more worried about the medals than it seemed he was.
Then, when Barbara told John about the FBI stopping by, he claimed he had to testify at a federal case for work.
John said they called me at the last minute, and so the FBI must have been coming to get some more information.
A few months later, Barbara began to have concerns of a different kind.
John was no longer going to work, wasn't calling any of his business associates, and then all of a sudden he was playing sweepstakes and buying things through the mail. I would get so frustrated because, John, we can't afford this.
By the beginning of 1990, with their debt still mounting, Barbara was running out of patience. Luckily, John said he was finally getting some money from his trust fund. But first, they needed to visit a bank in Florida.
So we were going to meet with the banker to pick up a check. I was driving, and on the way to the bank, John clutched his chest and yelled out and keeled over. I said, my heart, my heart.
Panicked, Barbara rushed her husband to a nearby hospital. Once John was admitted, she called the bank to cancel their appointment and learned something odd.
The banker had never heard of John, and there was no appointment.
Barbara went back to their hotel to search for any paperwork.
I was checking out John's briefcase, and I just didn't know what to think. I was so confused.
There was nothing about their appointment, but what she did find inside that briefcase sent a chill down her spine.
I was in a state of confusion. I felt very frightened.
In June of 1990, Barbara Bentley was shocked when she uncovered the unthinkable in her husband's briefcase.
I was questioning myself. I was questioning the craziness. I was very unsettled.
Why would a retired naval officer need a weapon? When she returned to the hospital later that afternoon, Barbara learned that indeed John had suffered a heart attack, but was recovering well.
So when I got to the hospital room, I challenged him on this gun. I said, well, what did you need a gun for? He said, well, we were picking up this money. And I said, but it would be a check, probably cashier's check.
Then Barbara mentioned that the bank had no appointment for them.
Of course, he had an excuse of why I maybe didn't remember him or whatever. Then I realized, well, here's this man laying in this hospital bed, just having suffered a heart attack. I better back off. So I did.
A week later, the couple returned home to California without ever visiting the bank. And Barbara couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was very wrong. But before Barbara could question him about the family money, John had some good news about a consulting gig in Egypt.
It was going to pay enough money to cover all of our bills. Then he said that the real good news was I could go with them for the first 2 weeks, that the government would pay my way to do that. And I was excited because I'd always wanted to see Egypt.
I didn't give it much credence at all because it was like, here's another John story. I think at this point, both George and I probably had kind of had enough of John.
Sure enough, there was a slight snag in the plan.
It was getting closer to time for departure, and we still didn't have our special diplomatic passports that we were supposed to get from the leader of this team. So John said that there was some kind of politics going on, and we better fly to see the Admiral in Washington, D.C.
Once in D.C., the Admiral was hard to track down.
We go off to Annapolis, and there's no Admiral, and he said, the Admiral is over at such and such base in Maryland. So we rushed over there, and there's no Admiral there. And this went on and on.
Pushed to her limit, Barbara threatened to leave John in D.C.
I told John that if we didn't see the Admiral, then I was going to go home. I had had it.
The following morning, Barbara stayed behind to pay for breakfast, then went up to the hotel room to meet John.
I looked over to the bathroom, and I noticed a brown bottle sitting on the counter and some latex surgical gloves. And I said, John, what are you doing with these?
John told Barbara that his doctor prescribed him ether.
At that point, he grabbed me, put an ether-soaked wash rag over my face, and I started a battle for my life.
As Barbara struggled to free herself, John tried to smother the life out of her.
And I'm not screaming because I know I can't breathe this ether. And I broke away enough to get to the door and open it up.
But John wasn't about to let Barbara escape.
He grabbed me back and pulled me back in, and he pushed me to the floor and started pouring the ether on my face.
Barbara knew she had to get out of there immediately if she was going to get out alive.
He ran out of the ether, and he's staring down at me with wild, wild eyes, double eyes.
I looked up at him, and I said, John, if there's a problem, we can talk about this. And it snapped him out of the trance.
Eerily calm, John made a shocking revelation.
He said, I just found out I have terminal cancer, and I wanted to put you under so I could go jump off the Key Bridge and commit suicide. I sat down next to him, and I took his arm, and I just started rubbing it.
Within minutes, John seemed to be asleep, and Barbara knew it was now or never.
She was going to soon uncover the lies and the deceptions, and he was going to get rid of her.
I decided that I needed to leave the room or I wouldn't leave it alive.
If you have a story of marriage gone wrong and would like to appear on this series, go to investigation.discovery.com. On the morning of February 15th, 1991, Barbara Bentley knew her life was in danger at the hands of her husband.
I got to the door, opened it up very quietly, and closed it very quietly. I went as fast as I could through the main desk and told him to call the police. My husband had just tried to murder me with ether.
Officers arrived within minutes and arrested John Perry as he tried to escape.
I was really just dazed, and just kind of not in reality of what was happening.
Arlington County, Virginia prosecutor Theo Stamos was assigned to the case.
Barbara was traumatized. Her sense was that, okay, there's a huge disconnect here with, who I thought he was and what just happened to me in that hotel room, and why did that happen?
A few days after the attack, Barbara returned home to California, alone.
She was determined to uncover the truth about her husband of almost 10 years. She called an admiral who John had worked with in the past.
And that's when he told me, well, don't you know about the FBI investigation? John had been investigated for impersonating an officer.
The FBI had confiscated John's medals, and Barbara was stunned to find out why. Her husband, the celebrated admiral, wasn't an admiral at all. In fact, he had been discharged from the Navy some 40 years earlier, and no one knew where he acquired his many war medals.
When the FBI agent confirmed that John was not a retired rear admiral, It was like, oh my gosh, he's not who he said he was.
And that was just the beginning.
John had a criminal record for the past 40 years. That he had been arrested for grand theft and for impersonating officers and check fraud and just a whole laundry list of activities.
Even John's wealthy grandmother and 4 children were fictional. But he was honest about one thing.
He was indeed the son of Admiral Perry of the Seabees in World War II, and he was the black sheep of the family.
We eventually learned that John had mounting financial pressures, and he had a life that he had constructed that was really about to fall apart because sort of the jig was up.
It was like unreal that this could be a person who said he loved me, and so I felt betrayed.
In June 1991, John Perry went to trial and pleaded not guilty to attempted first-degree murder.
The opening statement by defense counsel basically was that he was trying to save his wife the grief of watching him die a slow death. The detective and I met with his doctor. He said, no, the guy didn't have cancer.
After only 2 days, the jury found John Perry guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years behind bars.
One of the things the homicide detective found out for me was the location of John's stepmother. And I got in contact with her, and I met with her. She said he had joined the service, and he had come out of boot camp and was with a friend in a hotel, dove into a pool, hit his head, and he was in the hospital for 3 or 4 months. And after that, he had a medical discharge. She said he was never the same. He started getting into trouble after that.
Barbara's ordeal with John wasn't over just yet. After serving only 14 months, he was released on probation.
My attorney told me I was going to have to pay John alimony. I would have to give him half my retirement fund, and I had to pay car and medical insurance on him. And that was when I decided that the law needed to be changed, that was not right, that somebody could try to murder you and then still profit by it.
On January 1st, 1996, Barbara succeeded in changing the law, and her payments to John ended.
I applauded her. She went through a difficult situation, very difficult, and she learned a lot, I think, about herself. And I think mostly she learned how tough she is.
Barbara still lives in California, and today she is happily remarried.
You know, I've been married now 13 years to Rex. He's just been very supportive of everything that I've wanted to do. I didn't have trouble trusting again. It was truly trusting myself more than trusting another person, trusting my judgment. I wondered, why did this happen to me?
Barbara has since written a book about her experience.
I decided that I would write a book to help others understand there is light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it takes a lot of hard work to get there, but it's worth it.